All right. Good morning, everyone. Today is, I think it's day 73. We're going to continue on, as it says up here, with day 3 of our intro to React. We're going to build 2 React apps today that you're very familiar with. I'm going to show you the first one in just a minute, and then we'll build it, and then we'll take a break, and then I'll show you the second one, and we'll build that as well. Okay, so tomorrow we'll build either 1 or 2 more React apps, depending on time. And Friday will be our typical lab period. I'm going to conclude this next Monday. So after today, we'll build at least 2 more and possibly up to 3 or 4 more apps in React. And what we will do on Monday of next week is we'll build at least 1 app where we will go out and grab stuff from the internet so you can see how that is done. Okay. All right. As I've mentioned many times previously, and I'm going to say it again, your e-portfolio and any remaining work that you might have is due by midnight 1 week from tomorrow. All right, again, I will be grading all day Thursday. If you can get stuff into me early, that's fantastic. All right, so that's about it from there. So let's get started. Now, I want to show you what this is going to look like when we start playing this. So you'll notice it's nothing grand or glorious, but there's also a little bit of a delay on there, and I'll explain why as we go through this. But notice user chose rock, computer chose scissors, user wins, so there's 1 user win there. Do it again. User chose paper, computer chose scissors, so the computer wins. All right, etc. Like I said, there's a little bit of a delay, and you'll see why all that is in just a minute. This does not work well if you keep hitting rock, 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 etc. Because like I said, there's a timer in here. So I'm going to explain all that stuff to you. Again, you may notice that it is using the default port here, which is 3000 right there. So the other thing I want to mention is I haven't saved everything out to the repo yet, but I will shortly. But I've already created a repo. This is a weird repo, and I've got an error that I'd never received before, but it makes a lot of sense. And that is, I wanted to show you this. When you create a React project, it creates a Git repo for you. I put both the projects we're going to do today in a folder and made a Git repo for that folder. So it's telling me that I've got a Git repo inside of a Git repo. All right. So like I said, it may be a little bit funky on here, but I didn't know any other way to do it. I guess what I might end up doing is I might end up going back and trying to do this in a different way as far as storing it, but I don't know. All right. So like I said, with all that said, I'm just going to begin. Now, and do this one a little bit differently. Again, we can come in here and I can come in and create a new folder, no problem, and just call it something like, I don't know, RPS-React, and it'll be fine. So then I can go in there and start doing my thing, or I cannot have any folder in there whatsoever. So I'm right on the desktop itself. I'm going to right mouse click on it and choose Git Bash here. And you'll notice when I do that, it says that I'm on the desktop. All right. Now, the way that you create a new React project, and there's more than one way to do it, but I'm going to say npx create hyphen react hyphen app, and then give it a name. I'm going to move this down because I want you to see what's going to happen in a moment here. There should be a folder that gets created in here someplace. It might be in there. I don't know where it'll be placed, but that will be called RPS-React. All right. And again, the recommendation is you use all lowercase letters and you can use dashes in the name. So I'm going to call it RPS-React. All right. And hit enter. And momentarily, like I said, you should see a folder being made. There it is, RPS React. So notice it says installing packages. This might take a couple minutes. And if I do open this, all right, there's the package.json. I don't know if you got kicked out or what, Grant, but okay. So all I did was I went in here and I went to the desktop with nothing, with no file. I literally went into the desktop right here. Did it get bash here? All right. And then from there, you can see it. There I was on the desktop. I typed in npx space create hyphen react hyphen app. Then I gave it a name, rps-react, and it created this rps-react folder. I said it's convention that most people, it's really recommended you use lowercase and you can use hyphens between words, but don't have blank spaces in there. So as it says, it created a brand new app then on the desktop and called it RPS React. It installed the package, and as it says, it may take a couple minutes. Well, that's basically everything that it put into node modules, plus some other stuff that we went over a little bit yesterday. Now it says added 1,423 packages in 36 seconds. 235 packages are looking for funding. I'm not even sure what that means. Probably some of that stuff was created by people and they're hoping to get compensated for it. It also created the Git repository. All right, it installed any dependencies from that node package manager that we have talked about, added 62 more packages, changed one package. All right, and you can see it says 6 high severity vulnerabilities. All right, there's not much you can do about that unless you want to run that command. But the problem is, it is possible that there are things that we are adding, all right, that could have not errors in them, but problems with them, warnings or whatever. All right, then it says success inside of that directory, and it even tells me I can run this right now, and we're going to do that in a moment by doing npm start. We already went over what the other ones here mean. All right, and there's the happy hacking. So really what's in there right now, if I come in and type in npm start, you've seen this kind of thing before. All right, why is it giving me an error? Says there is a no such file, package.json. Yes, there is a package.json, and it's right. Oh, it probably wants me to go inside of here. Let me try to run it from here. Actually, I don't know why it's giving me an error. So let's see. Not being able to find a file. Okay, well, let's do a CD to source. Oh, I'm still on the desktop. That's the problem. I didn't change to it. All right. So CD to RPS dash React. Okay, so now I'm here. I'm inside of here. Now let's see if we can do an npm start. That looks a little bit better. Now it says something is already running on port 3000. What that means is, all right, that when I was running before on port 3000, when I was showing you what the end product will look like, even though I closed it, it still didn't close down. All right, and there is a command that I can stop anything from running on there. I'm hoping this is right. I think it's npm kill minus port 3000. All right, so okay, I know I've got the command someplace, but this is the kind of thing that you can run into. All right, so let me see if I can find it quick. I don't want to waste anybody's time doing this. Let me see if I can Google it. That's what it is. npx kill minus port 3000. Okay, let's try that. Well, there it is. So this is the command. I put npx kill and I put a space there. That's why it didn't work. So let me copy that. All right. So like I said, let me bring this up on here and let me exit out of here. And now let me bring in that command. So it's npx space kill minus port 3000. And it should just come back and tell me there's nothing else running on there. Process killed. All right. So now if I do an npm start, all right, now it should come up and work. So right now, this is all I have, which is your typical out of the box type of thing that you get with React. That's it. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this. Actually, I can keep it running. And the reason I might want to keep it running is to show you how fast it'll do auto updates for us. So I'll keep it running right now. And I'm going to take my folder here, which is my RPS React that I just created, and I'm going to open it up in code. And you see, again, there's a lot of stuff in here. We've talked about this before. All right. Okay. Just in case you didn't know this, and if I didn't mention this to you before, well, shame on me, but I'm going to close code for a second. Okay. I can open it up from right inside of here too, if I want to. So I will stop the run. But I'm already in the folder, so I can type in here code dot, and it opens up code in the current folder that I'm in. It's the same thing, just a little bit of a shortcut. All right. Now, what I'm about to do, you don't have to do. Not only that, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to remove some files we don't need. Okay. When I taught this class last semester and we got into this, two of the students were able to go in and remove the same files I'm going to show you that I'm going to remove. All right. Two students were able to do that with no problems whatsoever. All right. The other two had to actually put those files back again because for some reason it gave them error messages when they tried to remove them. And we went through and Googled it and tried to find a problem with it, but we couldn't. All right. So what are we going to get rid of here? Well, we're not going to do anything with testing. So this setup test, so I can get rid of that. We're not going to do anything with this report web vitals, which allows you to create statistics for your file. This is that logo that showed at the beginning. We don't need that. Don't need this app test.js. Now, we're not going to put any CSS in here. So if we wanted to, we could remove the app.css and the index.css. We could remove them both, but I'm just going to leave them there. They're not hurting anything. But these I'm going to delete. All right, so I'm cleaning it up a little bit. Now, one thing I want to do next then is I want to go into app.js. This is the way I start virtually every project I work on. All right. Now, this is that file, that logo, which we just removed. So I'm going to get rid of that. If we had gotten rid of the app.css, we would remove that file. But since I left it, I'll keep it there. All right. Also, when you look, I don't want there to be any semicolons in here. You can use semicolons or you can leave them off. It's totally up to you. All right. We're not going to be using any CSS. So where it says class name equal app, I'm just going to get rid of that. So I just have a div and nothing else in there. And everything inside of the div, I'm going to get rid of. So now all I have in here is just an empty div. I can run it and get a blank screen, but I'm just going to put in here, hello. That's it. Just to make sure, and I'm going to save this to make sure that it comes up and it looks basically the way that it's supposed to look. All right. The other thing I'm going to do too, and you don't have to do this, but this is the old type of syntax for writing a function. I'm going to use our newer arrow syntax. Again, you don't have to. It works fine like this, but I'm going to put in here const app equal paren, arrow function, curly brace. That does the exact same thing as that function. Now, it's a little more typing, but it's the way that things are typically done today. So I'm going to leave it like that. Finally, I'm going to do one more thing. Well, first I'll save this, but I'm going to open up my index.js file because in there I had added this report vitals. That's one of the things I just removed. And down on the bottom, we're calling report web vitals. So I'm going to get rid of that. Plus, again, I'm going to remove all of these semicolons. If you like having semicolons, rather, in there, you can leave them. It doesn't hurt anything. I just don't particularly want to see them in there. All right. All right. So I'm going to save everything and I'm going to do a file, save all. And it's not like you don't have an HTML file here. It's not like you can do a create, that you can go in and you can do a live server or whatever. Instead, again, you run it right from here and you type in npm start. There's other ways you can start this up. I'm just not going to go through those right now. I'll let Evan go through that with you next semester. So here it comes. There's my hello. Okay. So that's all that's in there right now. That's all that we care about. All right. I am going to add one piece of CSS in here, literally like a line or two. And that is, I'm going to say where you've got this app text align center, I'm going to add in there, not only do I want app text align center, I want any div that I put in here to be centered as well. We don't have a logo anymore, so we can get rid of this. This is working with the logo as well, so we can get rid of that. We got rid of that app header that we put in, so I can get rid of that. This is the link that was in there originally, so we can get rid of that. And that's what makes the thing twirl, so I can get rid of that. So all I've added here is I've added div to the text align center, and I got rid of everything else. So I'm going to do a file, save all, and notice now when I look over here, now that's centered. All right. I could do other things if I wanted to. For instance, I could come in here, change the font size, change the font weight, etc. But for this first one that we're creating right here, for this first one, I'm not putting in any CSS. We'll add some CSS to the BMI one that we will create after the break. All right. But this is all I've got in here. So file, save, and I can close this. I'm not putting anything into index.js. Everything that I put in is going to be put in here. Now, what you put into the return is what you want your code to display on the screen. If you have logic that you want to write, and we do here, so if you have logic that you want to write, all right, you put that in between the const app and the return statement. You don't put it underneath here, you put it in here. So that's what I'm going to do right now. All right. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to give you a couple URLs that I'm going to put in here, not to waste my time or yours, but I'm going to talk about a few things that aren't going to make a boatload of sense right now. So I'm going to give you a couple URLs. I'm going to put them right in the program here as comments so that if you want to go out and look some more at this stuff, you'll be able to. Get rid of this. All right. Now I'm going to highlight each one of these individually, and we're going to take just a minute because we're going to do this a few times in here where we're going to take just a minute and we're going to go over the stuff that's in here. All right, so here's the first one. Lovely. React.dev reference. React. Oh, I left the E off somehow. So instead of use state, I put in use stat. Now, just so you're aware of this, this is the React homepage right here. React.dev. All right. And under React.dev, I went into the reference section for React and I found use state. All right. The way that we're going to do this, the way that we're going to set up variables, and even more importantly, the way we're going to change variables is different in React than what you've been doing previously. React is concerned with what's referred to as state. All right. And the state of something is basically, for lack of better words, it's its current condition. This right in here is very heavy. And I went through some of this stuff and it's kind of hard to understand. Now, the other one that's in here, the other one that I just showed you, this one, and hopefully I didn't spell anything incorrectly. I thought, at least, the reason I grabbed that one is I thought that the description here was a little easier to understand. All right. So as you see, use state in React, a complete guide. I don't want to read to you. All right. But notice, what is the hook and what can state hold? All right. Because what they show in there is why you want to go in and you want to actually use state, how you use state, all right, and what you can put into state. Finally, how you can update state. All right. It says, what does this do? If you want to take the time, all right, this is a great place to start. All right, and we're going to look at something else in just a couple minutes. All right, we're going to look at something else in just a couple minutes that's going to be called use effect. All right, and it's just something else that we're going to be able to use in the program. Now, just so you're aware of this, going back to the program here, okay? If you're going to be using this stuff, you have to import it. All right, and you have to import it literally from React itself. So I'm going to put two statements up here. The first is going to say import use state from React. Okay, then the second one is going to say import, we'll look at this one in a bit, use effect from React. All right. And I believe they've even set it up, they being the people who create all this stuff, that I didn't have to put that into two lines. I think I can do this and put them in there as just one line where I won't need this second line. So you can do it either as one line or two lines. It's kind of washed out looking right now because we're not using these. See, as it says, all imports are unused. As soon as we begin to use state, for example, this one will blacken, get darker, and you're going to see that literally in just a matter of minutes. All right. But if you want more on what it does, it's going to allow us, when we sit there and create variables, it's going to allow us to actually change the value of the variables. Now you might say, well, we already know how to do that. Yeah, but it's done differently in React. All right. You don't sit there and change the value of a variable. Like if you had a variable called age and your age was 18 and now it's your birthday, you wouldn't just say age equal 19. You don't do it like that. You would say do a set state on the age variable to change it. Now that might make very little to no sense. So let's get into it. All right. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create a bunch of things. Think about this now, that when we're playing rock, paper, scissors, what do we need? Well, we need to have the user's choice. We need the computer choice. We need the result, in other words, who won the game or was it a draw. We will also keep track of the number of user wins, the number of computer wins, and the number of draws. So we're going to have 6 state-related variables that we create in here. I'm going to line them all up. By no means do you have to do that, but I'm going to line them all up so we can sit and talk about them after I put the 6 in there. Back, let me just do this. I'm going to get errors, but I'll fix it right away. All right, so we've got a user choice. We've got the computer choice. We have the result. All right, so let me line these all up so we can go over them. Again, you don't have to do this. I just want to be able to talk about these basically as a unit, for lack of better words. And these 3 are not going to be null. These are going to be 0. All right, so what do we have here? You can look at it this way. We are creating 6 constants. How do I know they're constants? Because they have const in front of them. Also, hopefully you remember with the syntax, this is an array. Each one of these is an array, and each one of them has 2 things in there. All right. The first one is the name of the variable that we're using. So that's user choice, computer choice, result, user wins, computer wins, and draws. And the second one is the method that we're going to use to allow us to change the value of the associated variable. So set user choice will allow us to change user choice. Set draws will allow us to change draws, etc. All right. We don't have a user choice when we start. Okay. There's no user choice in there. If we wanted there to be one, we could put it in there. We don't want there to be a user choice for the computer, or a computer choice either. And we don't want there to be a result. All right. Now, these are all accumulators. It's important that you at least have an understanding of what the word accumulator means. What am I saying? Well, every time the user wins a game, I want to call set user wins so that I can increment user wins by 1. And the same thing with a computer or with a draw. Since those are accumulators that are going to be working solely with numbers, I'm initializing those to 0. I could have also come in here and initialized each one of these to the empty string. It wouldn't really matter one way or the other. Either way, it would work. All right. Okay. So I'm going to put some stuff in here. We will go over it, but it may not make a lot of sense. I'm just, for lack of better words, kind of warning you about that right now. Okay. All right. I want to be able to come in, and once the user clicks one of the 3 buttons that we're going to have on here, once the user clicks one of those 3 buttons, I'm going to wait for 3 seconds, and then I'm going to have the computer choice be made. and it's going to be made pretty similar to what we've done in the past. We're going to get a random number, all right? The same kind of way. But since this is logic, I don't want it inside of here. I want it outside. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to write a routine. You can call it whatever you want. I'm going to call it handle click. And if that doesn't make sense, give me a second because we're going to go over what all this means. All right. And this is going to be value. In other words, I can call that whatever I want, but that's going to be which of the buttons did I click? All right. Now, what do I want to do? I want to be able to set the user choice because they just clicked a button. But I don't say user choice equal value. I don't do this. And the main reason I can't do that is this is set up as a constant. All right. And I'm going to get an error if I try to do that. Plus, one of the rules of React is you never directly change the value of one of your state variables. Instead, you do it like this. We say set user choice, and we set that user choice to value. All right. That's the way that we do it. All right. I can't give you a great reason for that other than that's the way that it's done. And maybe that stinks as a reason, but it's the only one I can think of giving you. All right. Next, I'm going to give you another URL. We're not going to go out there, but I'm going to talk about it. We've already done this already. So all right. What I want to do next is I want to basically get the choice for the computer. Okay. I want to get the choice for the computer. So I'm going to call a routine that doesn't exist yet. I want to say that again. I'm going to call a routine that doesn't exist yet. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to tell it, I'm going to set a timeout. You hopefully remember that from inside the class. And I'm going to tell it to do the following. That should be an equal sign. That's when I'm getting the errors. Okay. I want to tell it to do this. I want to say, hey, I want you to call get computer choice, which is, how do I know that's a function? Paren. But what I want you to do is I want you to come in here and I want you to, well, I guess I've already got them right here. All right. So I want you to do this, but I want you to wait 3 seconds before you do it. I'm going to say that again. Okay. Once I go in and I choose or I click whichever one I want, then, okay, and it's only going to happen after I've created and made my choice. Then I want you to wait 3 seconds and call this routine to get the user's choice. Now, why am I doing it like that? Why am I doing that? Well, if I didn't wait, all right, if I didn't wait, I could cheat every time. I could wait till the user's choice was made, then I could pick out something that would beat them every single time. Well, that's kind of silly. And again, it's not that I couldn't do that. That wouldn't be much of a game, to be honest with you. I guess in the end, if I really wanted to, I could do that. I don't, like I said, I don't know why I would, but I could do that. All right. Okay. So we're calling this routine that's called get computer choice right there. All right. But we haven't written it yet. So let's come down here and write that. There's nothing that's passed into it. All right. And it's pretty simple. We need a random number. Now, when we've done the random number in the past, we've had 1, 2, or 3, and we could do that. but there's really no difference between 1, 2, and 3 being rock, paper, scissors, and 0, 1, and 2 being rock, paper, scissors. So we could end up adding 1 to it at the end every time. I just left it as 0, 1, and 2 because it doesn't matter. But we want to get a random number here. Now, one thing I guess I forgot to put in, I'm going to put it in right now. So just give me a second because it's just one line of code. All right. And that is, I'm going to come in here and I'm going to create an array up on the top here, another array. And this is going to say const, and it's going to be called choices. And it's going to be an array of strings that has in there rock, paper, and scissors. Did I have to do that? Not at all. All right. In fact, instead of choice, let's call it choices because there's 3 of them. All right. But now what I am going to be able to do, all right. So now what I'm going to be able to do in here under my get computer choice is I can use that choices variable in there. What do I mean? Let me show you. Again, you're going to get all this code, so I've already got it for you. I'm going to use choices. And whoops, math.floor math.random times choices dot length. All right. Now, if that makes no sense to you, let's break it down. We want to take and figure out something in here and assign it to here. All right. So what is that doing? Well, math.floor says if I get, as an example, if I get 1.6738 for my random number, all right. In fact, it says throw away any decimal portion. So basically, it'll set it back to 0. All right, but it's going to multiply by 3. So this is going to give us a random number that's going to end up being 0, 1, or 2. All right. So now that we've got this random number, we can set the computer's choice. All right. So I'm going to call set computer choice. All right. And you might say, well, wait a minute, you call that get computer. These are just names I'm using. They don't really matter. But I've got here set computer choice, and I have a set computer choice right here. So what am I doing? I am going in there and I am changing that value by using that method. So I'm saying set computer choice, and I want to set it to rand. All right. So now I've got a choice for the user, and I've got a choice. I've now got a choice for the user, and I've got a choice for the computer. So what's going to have to happen next is I'm going to have to go in and determine the winner. That's another routine we haven't written yet that we're going to write in just a moment. And it's going to look a heck of a lot like what we did when we did this the other day in JavaScript. All right. So before we do that, though, just a couple things. What happens when you start running this program is it acts real funky, especially at the beginning of the program with the timing and everything else that goes on in there. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to come in here. For now, at least, I'm going to comment this out and I'm going to add 3 or 4 lines in here. All right. And I'm going to use the other one. Remember earlier we used use state. You can see that's not commented out anymore. And we did not use effect. We're going to use that right now. All right. And I'm going to grab both of these and I'm going to bring them in here and paste them in, and this will be use effect. All right. And this will be blog.com, and this will be use effect. Hook complete guide. Okay. All right. Use effect is its own animal. Now, what do I mean? What I mean is you're going to have to read the documentation, because even if I go over it with you right now, it's not going to make a lot of sense. All right. But what we want to put in here is use effect. And very simply, we want to put in here determine winner. So originally I had determine winner in here, but like I said, it was acting really quirky. So I brought it down here. All right. And when you do this, there's different ways that you can do this when you use effect. I'm going to explain the one that was used here. All right. So what this is saying right here, and it might not make a lot of sense, I get it. This says whenever the computer choice changes, or the user choice changes, or they both change. All right, if that happens, call this routine. Okay. If you just put bracket here, and if I left that blank, all right, if I left that blank, that would say only call it when the program starts. Well, we want to call determine winner anytime we get a new winner. So this is when we want to call this. It's anytime the computer choices changes, because if the computer choice changed, remember, in 3 seconds, so will the user choice. All right. So let's go in, and the only thing we haven't written on here in our regular code has been this determine winner. So let's write that. And again, you'll notice I'm using, whenever possible here, I'm using arrow functions. I'm not sure. I'm not Mr. Goodmasted, but all I can tell you is literally, if you ask the students who took the AWD1111 class with me last semester, they will tell you that virtually 100% of the time I used arrow functions. All right. So very similar to what we did earlier, and that is we're going to do a switch here on user choice plus computer choice. This is the same thing we did when we did the JavaScript version. All right, so I'm going to say case, rock, rock, case, paper, paper, case, scissors, scissors. All right, if it's any one of those, what do we want to do? Now we're going to call set result. We don't want to say just result equal draw, because remember, result was a constant, but we can use the set method. So we're going to say set result to draw. We also want to add 1 to our draws counter. So we want to say set draws, that's the counter. All right. And we want to set that equal to draws plus 1. And then finally, we want to break. Now, what you should notice when you look up here now is notice what's getting blackened in. Computer choice and draws. All right, this didn't get, because I screwed up, that should be a capital R. All right, now notice set result is also blackened. This is the way that you should do these. If you've got multiple words, the first word should be lowercase, The second word, the first character should be uppercase, etc. All right. And then that's for the variable name. Then for the set, you put the word set in and you take that first letter that was lowercase and you now capitalize it. So you can see how I've set these up, no pun intended, but that's the way typically that you will do this. All right. So let me do the rest of them here. Okay. So this is the draw situation, for lack of better words. Then we've got case, scissors, paper. This is going to be when the user wins. Case, rock, scissors. And case, paper, rock. And if it's any one of those three, now we want to set the result to what? To user wins. All right. And we want to set our user wins to user wins plus 1. Okay. And then to make it a little simpler, I'm going to copy this. All right. And we just have to reverse what's in here right now. So this will be paper, scissors. This will be scissors, rock. And this will be rock, paper. So if it's any one of those, well, what happened? We already know this. All right. We know that what happened now is the computer wins. All right. And we have to set computer wins to computer wins plus 1. All right. Now, when I did this before, I didn't put a default case in here. And when I ran it, it gave me a warning saying you really need a default case in here. So it should never be hit, but I'm just going to put in here default break. And as I notice in here, I forgot my break statement here. And I forgot my break statement here. So when you look at these, and we did go over this the other day, but the first thing that's in here is the user. The second thing that's in here is the computer. So we both chose rock, we both chose paper, we both chose scissors. So it would be a draw. If I chose computer chose, or if I chose scissors, or if I chose paper and the computer chose rock, I win. If we reverse those, the computer wins. If you spell anything wrong in here, you probably won't even get an error until that thing gets hit. And then it's like, I don't have any idea what this is supposed to be. All right. All right. So that's everything's fine. Everything's good in there, to be honest with you, except for the fact we don't have anything. If we run the program right now, all right, even if we have no errors, all it's going to show is hello. So we've done nothing as far as writing our, as far as writing exactly what we want to have happen. So let's do this. I'm going to come in here and I'll use H2s so they're not too big. And I'm going to put in here user chose. All right. And then I'm going to put in here user choice. All right. So that's all I'm putting in there is the user's choice. Then I'm going to come in and I'm going to put in computer chose. And I will put in here computer choice. And finally, and there's a lot more we have to put in yet, not a lot, probably about 7 or 8 lines, but I'm going to put in one more H2 that says result and result. All right. Now that's the beginning. I'm not at all done yet. All right. But notice if I come in here and I do a file, save all, and I come back in here, I don't think I have it running anymore. Maybe, oh, I do. There's what we have so far. User chose, computer chose, result. It's actually doing everything right now we told it to do. All right. But you're like, well, where are our buttons? We're going to put those in just a second. All right. We have to put in our buttons. Okay. In fact, let's put the buttons above here. Well, so we'll put the buttons above the word result. All right. And then we're going to put down here, we'll have our accumulators, our total user wins, our total computer wins, and our total draws. All right. So I might go till 5 after. All right. But we'll get a break in very shortly. So I'm going to come in here, and this is going to take a while to explain. Okay. So we'll have rock, we'll have paper, and this is what the button says. So it'll say paper, and we'll have scissors. And again, the button will say scissors. All right. And I don't know how I did that, but I did. So let me put that back in there. There we go. So now let's take a look at what we have, and then we'll go back over what this means. All right. All right. So now we've got this. All right. Right now, there we go. Again, it's catching up. But notice it's all working. We don't have our final totals yet. But if I press rock and I wait for a couple minutes, it's got to wait 3 seconds. It'll have what the user or the computer chose, and then who won. If I go to here, this may change. There we go. And it's a draw. So you can see it now. It's actually working. Well, wow, that's fine, Jeff, but how did we make that work? What we're saying here is create 3 buttons. When you click any one of those buttons, call that handle click routine that we wrote up at the beginning in here. And the value that we are passing in, that value is going to be either rock in lowercase, paper in lowercase, or scissors in lowercase. All right. And then come back up here. We are setting the user choice to that. Then we are going to call get computer choice after we wait 3 seconds. And then we'll figure out the computer choice, and then we will determine the winner. So the only thing we really have to add down here then is after this, let's add 3 more H2s. Whoops. And this one will say user wins. You'll notice whenever I want to actually show a value, I'm putting it inside of curly braces. And we'll have computer wins. And finally, we will have draws. Try that again. All right. So let's see if the whole program is now finished. So you can see it. And now I've got it bigger at 100%. It's going to actually look like this. So we could do a lot of playing around with it to make it look better. If I click here, it's refreshing everything. So I'm going to choose rock. And you'll notice it did wait, and then it made the computer's choice. Rock, what? It's got the computer wins. Why? Because paper covers rock. So it is working. Now, what we could do, I didn't do this, is we could have added another button here, or we could have told this to clear. There's a lot of things that can be done. I could have, used some CSS to make these buttons better. I could have used some CSS to make the button actually look like a rock and like a paper and like a scissors. One thing I thought of doing, I just didn't, I ran out of time. No excuse. But I found this. This is an animated GIF that I found online. And I was going to put that at the top of the program. So there's so many different ways that this program could conceivably be improved upon. All right. There's absolutely nothing wrong with the program as it is. It works. It demonstrates some of the concepts and even some of the major concepts that are in React, but it doesn't really show the correlation between using React and actually, like, for example, CSS. All right. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop this. I am going to get rid of these, all that stuff that I brought up earlier. Okay. And I'm going to close this. All right. I'm going to exit from here. And right before we take the break, I want to show you what the other one is going to look like that we're going to build after the break. So it'll be called BMI React. All right, hopefully I can do a git bash here and run it so you can see it. So again, an npm start. If that thing didn't close down properly, I'd have to do another one of those kills on port 3000. All right. So this should look familiar to you by now. But if I come in here and I say a person is 72 inches tall and weighs 111 pounds, they are underweight. All right. If the same person weighs 168 pounds, they are optimal weight. If the same person weighs 200 pounds, they are overweight. And if the same person weighs 333 pounds, they're obese. I grabbed different pictures. All right. So not only are we going to create that one after the break, but we're going to style it. All right. So we will use, I think it's the index.css file, and we will do that. All right. It is 9:04. I'll tell you what, let's take till 9:20. All right. I want to get everything set up on here so that it all works. So I'm going to give you 15 minutes. It's 9:05, I guess. That we're gonna come back at 9:20 and we're gonna write this one. All right. I'll see you at 9:20. All right, it is 9:20, so I'm going to start back up. Two things before we get going. Number one, you can see now there were a couple 15-minute breaks in here, but you've already had approximately 5 hours on this. You're going to get 2 to 2.5 more today and tomorrow and Monday. So what I'm saying is even if you amortize it out to about 2 hours at a crack, you're getting 10 hours on this. So I'm trying to give you a fairly complete introduction to this. In addition, all of the code that I'm creating, I'm providing for you as well. All right. The other thing is, and I didn't think about this until earlier, but I kind of lied to you yesterday. I said we were going to start today by talking about why you should learn React. So I found a few articles out here, and I don't want to spend much time on them. But notice what they talk about in here. The first thing here is React Native. And what you can do with React, you can write applications with React Native that will work on mobile devices. So you can use them on iPhones, on Android phones, etc. Now, the next one that's here says easy to learn. Well, you're going to have to draw your own conclusions on that as far as whether or not it's easy to learn. The next one, and we haven't even gotten into this, but there are a lot of developer tools. All right. For instance, if I just come back here and I go down here in my Visual Studio Code, if I go to extensions here and I type in React, I'm going to find a whole bunch of stuff. All right. Now, most of it you probably wouldn't use, but there's some things in there like some snippets and a few other things so that you don't have to type as much in. Some stuff will be created for you automatically. All right. Components are reusable. That's the hallmark of React, that you build reusable components. All right. Next, JSX for templating. Well, hopefully you already realize this, but in the last program that we just did, let me get rid of that. All right, in the one that we just looked at a couple minutes ago, not the BMI one, but this RPS, I just want you to see this, that everything that we put into app.js, everything that went in between the return paren and the ending paren, that's JSX. Everything we put in here is JSX. All right. Now, is that big a thing? No. All right. But I just wanted you to hear that. Also, I went back and looked, and I wrote this two different ways. So when you get your copy of it tomorrow or later today, you're going to see that this is the way we did it. And then I commented it out and did it another way because it results in less code. Technically, this is one line of code, even though I spread it over 3 lines, as opposed to 3 lines of code. All right. So, all right. The other stuff that's in here then, and again, this is the author's article. Optimum performance with virtual DOM. We talked about this before. All right. And that is the fact that React uses a virtual DOM so that when it has to update the page, it only updates what it has to update as opposed to the whole page. This complemented by Flux architecture. I'm going to look at that in here. I'm not even sure what they're talking about. All right. And good abstraction. Abstraction means that you're able to hide a lot of details. All right. So it says the library for React is lightweight. Okay. Components are reusable. We've already talked about this one. As a user, you would not be exposed. All right. Well, a lot of the stuff that we're doing in here, you don't have to know how it works. It just works. All right. This Flux architecture, it says Flux, Facebook's web app architecture, basically was designed. Remember, React was created by Facebook. All right. The other stuff you can take a look. Okay. Then I found another one, and I'm not going to go over any of this, but it was again why you should learn it. Some of it is very much a rehash of what we just looked at. All right, but you can look at that one, and I'm going to give you all of these. Should have kept that other one up, but I'm going to give you all these URLs. Finally, this one, because this is more technical. 10 reasons why React is still the top choice, rather, for web development. So you can take a look at that. I'll give you all the URLs. Finally, again, why would you want to learn this? Well, I mean, notice here, I just put in here, I went into Indeed.com, and there weren't a lot of ads, but I put in React developer, St. Louis, Missouri, and notice 80 to 100 grand a year, easy apply, urgently hiring. Now, it says proven experience. What does that mean? Does that mean that you wouldn't have a chance? It's possible. But if I change this from where, and I don't put a location in there, and I just say React developer, my guess is it's going to find a heck of a lot more if you're willing to travel once you graduate. 100 to 125, 116 to 147. All right. 107 to 135, etc. All right. Okay. So I'll just stop it right there. And let's write the next one then. So do this one the other way, in that I'm going to come in here, right mouse click on here, do a new folder, and I'm just going to call this folder BMI-React. All right. Then I'm going to go into that folder, right mouse click on it, do a git bash here, just like we did before, but this will be npx create react app. And since we already have the folder, I'll just put dot, which means do it in the current folder. And again, it'll take about a minute or so for it to rev up and do everything that it has to do. I'll give it a second to do that. I still have the old program open, so I close that. So I do not have VS Code running any longer. Notice it says they're installing, you may or may not have noticed it, but it said installing React, React DOM, and React scripts. All right. There's a reason I just mentioned that, and you're going to see it in just a moment. Okay, that's done. So we now have in here, just like before, we've got all the beginning stuff we need. All right. So I'm going to go into the source folder right here. As we did previously, I'm going to remove the setup tests, the report web vitals, the logo, and the app test. I'm going to remove those 4 files from here. All right, I did it before, but I did it inside of VS Code. There's no difference. And then I'm going to go into the app.js and just bring it up in a different editor for right now. I'm going to remove that import logo. I'm going to get rid of everything. We'll leave the class name equal app in here this time because we are going to do some styling. We'll again, for now, just put in hello. All right. And again, as before, I'm going to get rid of the semicolons. All right. And then finally, I'm going to open up the index.js, just the same stuff we did before. And I'm going to remove this report web vitals and the call to it. All right. And get rid of my semicolons. I've tried using semicolons to see if there was any advantage. I've tried leaving them out to see if there's any advantage. I have tried all sorts of stuff. Okay. And there doesn't seem to be much difference. Even if you leave some in and not others, it doesn't seem to matter much. All right. This says that I am going to be using the index.css file. All right. This, I'm not even sure if you need this line anymore. Import React from React, because I think you might get it by default, but I'm going to leave it in there anyway. And this, remember, this says we're going to write everything in that thing that file where we had an element of root. We had a div with an ID of root. All right. And this says what we want to actually render, what we want to show on the screen is whatever is in our app.js file. Now, normally we would break this down into components. So rather than having it say app slash, we'd have the pieces in there of app. We're not going to worry about that, at least not right now. All right. So I've got all this in here now. All right. And I'm going to bring it up inside of VS Code. So again, I'm going to say code dot, and there it is. I'm not going to run this. You know now, if I did run it, really what I should just get is the word hello on there. And we can do that, but I don't really see a heck of a lot of reason for doing that. All right. So I'm going to go right out into source and into my app.js. And this time we'll leave it as function app. It's okay. It doesn't hurt anything to do that. Somehow it looks like I lost the I from import. There we go. All right. We are going to come in here and we are going to use the use state. Again, we're not going to use effect in this one, just use state. Now I can type in this a lot of ways. I already showed you, like this. All right. And a lot of developers, even though it's kind of redundant, will put it in like this. Import React, comma, then this. And the reason these are in curly braces is it's a method that's available to you in React. And you can put in many of these. There's a lot of different methods that you can use. All right. And again, we're going to be importing here. And I don't think that I used in here, I didn't use the app.css. I used index. You kind of got your choice in there over which one you use. All right. So that's what I have in here so far. And I'm going to start adding code right now. All right. And again, I'm going to come up here to start with, and I'm going to put in my state constants, but I also have some range constants in here. So I'm going to say in here, declare and initialize program, I don't know, range constants. This is going to be done the same way we did it in regular JavaScript. I'm even going to use uppercase here. So min height is going to be equal to 12. Max height is going to be equal to 96. So the minimum height of a person is 1 foot. The maximum height of a person is 8 feet. The minimum weight for somebody will be a pound. The maximum weight, and as you know, these are all arbitrary values that I use here, is 777. Remember that the range is anything below 18.5 for a BMI is underweight. Anything between 18.5 but under 30, all right, I'm sorry, under 25 is optimal weight. Anything 25 up till but not including 30 is overweight, and anything 30 and over is obese. The reason I'm telling you that is just like we did before, I'm going to have a max optimal that I'm going to set equal to 18.5. All right, I'm going to have another constant, max over, for that's overweight, and I'll set that equal to 25.0. And finally, and one last one, in fact, these aren't max, these are mins. So that's the min optimal is 18.5. The min overweight is 25, and the min obese is 30. Again, these are just, those values are actually from I think the Center for Disease Control or something. I don't know. All right. But all the stuff for minimums and maximums are they're just numbers, values I chose. And I'm not saying they're the best or whatever, but that, like I said, it's just that's what I did. All right. So now I'm going to put in, so I'm going to say declare and initialize my program state constants. Okay. And I'll have 4 of them. What are they? Well, I will want one that will hold the height. So I'll have a height and a set height, and I will set the U state on that to 0. I'll have one for the weight, and there'll be a weight and a set weight, and I'll set the U state on that one to 0. I'll have one for the BMI, so I'll have a BMI and a set BMI, but I'm going to set the U state on that one to just double quote, or single quote. So it'll be nothing there. And I'll have the message, which will be just simply underweight, optimal weight, overweight, or obese. All right, so those are the 4 I'm going to have here. Just copy this 3 times. So we'll have weight. This will be BMI. And the last one I just called message. We could call it whatever we wanted. All right. Okay. So again, those are our 4 height, weight, BMI, and message are our 4 different state variables, and the way that we will set them will be via set height, set weight, set BMI, and set message. All right. And I'm going to do everything. No, I shouldn't say that. I'm going to do almost everything inside of a single routine that's going to be called calculate BMI. Now, when I used const with this, I had some problems. All right. So I made this a let. And I want to make E available to me. Why? You're going to see right away. Because the first thing I want to do is I'm going to click a button, but I don't want it to go anywhere. So I'm going to do, to begin with, an E dot prevent default. All right. I don't want the system to go anywhere. All right. So what do I want to do next? Well, I want to validate the height and the weight. You've done things like this before. So if the height is less than min height, or the height is greater than max height, or the weight is less than max weight, or the weight is greater than, oops, that's min weight, sorry, is greater than, now this is max weight. All right, well, if any one of those things is true, what does that mean? That means that I put in a value. Oh, great. Okay, I hit the wrong button on here, so it's got some junk in here. That'll go away in just a second. I might have to close this and open it up again. Sorry about that. Okay, so this means if this is true, I put in a height that's less than 12 or greater than 96, or I put in a weight that's less than 1 or greater than 777. So if that's the case, I'm just going to put out an alert. There's other ways we could handle this, but I'm just going to say put an alert here that says, please enter a valid height and weight. That's it. And since I don't want to go any further, I'm just going to return. That's all I'm doing here. All right. So I'm going to put a bunch of stuff in here in this else that we're going to put in. But this is doing the validation. If either one of the fields, because we're only going to have two input fields, if either one of our input fields is invalid, I'm dead in the water. There's no sense in going on, and that's what I'm doing here. So if I hit the else, like I said, we put in a valid value for the height. We put in a valid value for the weight. All right. So I'm going to come in here and I'm going to try something. It's going to be a little bit different than the way that I did it in the example, but I'm going to type in here, let the BMI equal, this may not work. I may have to change it back later. This is just the BMI formula. So it's weight divided by math.pol. We want to do height squared, so I can say height 2, just like that. And that whole thing times 703. All right. So now I've got a BMI. So I want to set my BMI. I want to set it to what? The BMI. But not just that. I want it to be just 2 decimal places. I mean, I don't want a BMI in there that says something along the lines of 23.8547593, something like that. I just want it to 2 decimal places. All right. So now I'm going to come in and I'm going to do a couple different things in here. Okay. I'm going to come in and I'm going to basically come in here and check, for lack of better words, to set my message to underweight, overweight, optimal weight, or obese. All right. And I'm still inside of here. So I'm going to say if that BMI, all right, if it's less than min optimal, and you already know this, but I'm going to put a comment there anyway that says BMI is less than 18.5. So if that's the case, I want to do a set message, and I want to set my message to just simply say weight. All right, so that's going to handle the case of somebody who is underweight. Else, if the BMI is less than min over, so I can say here the BMI is greater than or equal to 18.5 and the BMI is less than 25.0. So if that's the case, we can say set message and we will say optimal weight. All right. Then next, we can say else if BMI is less than min obese. And again, you already know this, but that says that the BMI is greater than or equal to 25.0 and the BMI is less than 30.0. So if that's the case, I'm going to do a set message and I'm going to say overweight. All right. And then finally, now I had some problems. Normally I just do an else here, but I had some problems when I was running this on occasion. So I changed this to say an else if the BMI is greater than or equal to min obese. And again, you know what that means already. That means that what? The BMI is greater than or equal to 30.0. So if that's the case, all right, if that's the case, then I want to set my message to obese. All right. Now that's going to handle that's going to handle everything as far as It'll figure out my BMI. Later, once we put in some stuff in here, we'll be able to print out the BMI. We'll be able to print out the status, underweight, overweight, etc. So that's handling all that stuff. All right. So the next thing that we need to do is we need to come in and we're going to have to bring in our pictures, and we'll do that in just a minute. Okay. But I'm going to come down here. Now, outside of this, let calculate BMI. I'm going to come down here and I'm going to do this. I'm going to have a thing in here. This is where I'm going to hold my image. So I'm going to call it image source. And I'm going to say if my BMI was less than 1, I want to set my image source equal to no. All right. Now, why did I do that? I'm not sure. I didn't think I'd have to do that. But for some reason, again, I had weird errors when I didn't do it. All right. So else, if the BMI is less than min optimal, and you already know this, we talked about this before. So the BMI is less than 18.5. All right. Then I want to show the picture, and the picture that I want to show, all right, is the underweight picture. There's different ways of doing this, and I didn't want to get into too much to confuse anyone. But you'll notice here, there is a public folder. You'll learn much more about this next semester and what you put in here. All right. But I decided that rather than getting into the public folder, in your source folder here, I'm going to add another folder that I'm going to call, and this is what it's typically called, and that is assets, ASSETS. And in that assets folder, I am going to put in my pictures. So let me grab them from here. So there's the obese, the optimal weight, the overweight, and the underweight. All right, so I'm going to literally grab them and copy them into here. So I now have them. All right, and they are under source assets. There is an obese.ping, an optimal weight.ping, an overweight.ping, and an underweight.ping. Those are in there. I don't have to add them. I just did it outside of Visual Studio because I thought it'd be easier to do it that way. But if you look in here now, under source, I have assets, and there they are. All right. So the way I'm going to bring each one of these in is like this. I'm going to say image source equals, and I'm going to use a require statement, which I'm going to tell it to go out and get it. // source, and you'll notice under source, there's assets, and underneath assets, there are my pictures. So I want underweight.ping, just like that. All right. Now I'm going to say else if BMI is less than min over. And again, you already know this, but this says the BMI is greater than or equal to 18.5, and the BMI is less than 25.0. So if that's the case, let me just copy this because it'll go faster. But this optimal weight, all right. So that's handled my underweight and my optimal weight. So let's keep going. And again, this will say that the BMI is greater than or equal to 25.0, and the BMI is less than 30.0. All right. So again, I will come in here and do that. That will be the overweight. And again, when I tried just doing an else, I had really funky results. So I'm going to say else if BMI is greater than or equal to min obese, which means the BMI is greater than or equal to 30.0. And if that's the case, I want the obese. I didn't call it obese weight, just obese right there. All right. There's only one more thing that we need, and then we'll start coding this up. And that is we're going to have a button in here that's going to reset the screen. So if we want to, we can. And we're going to call that thing reload. So I'm going to make another routine here that says let reload. And all I'm going to say here is window dot location dot reload. It's the equivalent of me having a refresh or a reset button. It's pretty much the same thing. All right. So let me go in now. We got a bit of typing to do here inside of here. And we're going to put this in. We'll see what time we're at after that. And then I'm going to go into the index dot CSS file and write some CSS for this because it's going to look pretty butt ugly when we first start. All right. So we're going to have a div called container. And inside of there, we'll put it in H2. We want this to be centered, so we'll make a class later called centered. And it's just going to say BMI calculator. All right. And we're going to put in a form. All right. And when we submit the form, so on submit, we're going to call that routine that we've already written up above that's called calculate BMI. I think we called it like that, right? Calculate BMI. All right, so there it is. All right, now we have to create our form. So let's do that. This will look very HTML-ish. And I'm just going to do it. I put in a couple line breaks. That's a terrible way to do this. I should have played around more with margin and stuff. I just put it in like that. All right. This is that height. All right. Anytime we change the height, so anytime we come in here and change the height, oops, we're going to want to call set height. Okay. And I'm just going to put this, try this again. I'm just going to put this on its own line. We could put it all on one line. It doesn't hurt anything. But I'm going to call it set height, and I'm going to pass to that e.target.value. And that's just the value that we put inside of there. In fact, to make this look a little nicer, all right, let's take everything that we're working on in here. Let's put them all into their own div. We're going to put each one of these into its own div. So that's going to look much nicer, I think. All right, and I can move this up so it's there. All right, so what do we have here? Getting an error. Says identifier expected. What did I leave off? Let's see if I can figure it out. Height, inches. Oh, I never ended this. There we go. All right, so that'll be the one for our height. Might as well just copy this whole thing, and right below it, we'll put in the one for the weight. And the weight, of course, won't be inches, it'll be pounds. And the weight will be an unchanged, and we'll call set weight. All right, so far we've got our two inputs put in here. Okay. Well, then the next thing to do is we're going to put in a couple buttons. In fact, I could put this class equals centered in everything. I don't know if it's going to exactly work the way I think it is, but we'll see. All right. Now, so next we want to come in here and put in our buttons. And we're going to do some styling. So it's going to be of type class name is button. The first one will be a submit. And it'll say submit. And I'm going to put each one on its own line. So again, I cheated and used a BR tag. All right. And then we're going to put in another one. Come on. There we go. Oh, God. So we're going to put in a second button. All right. And this second button will just be called, it's going to be a type reset. But when we click it, remember by default, we said that we wanted to turn off what this does. So after the reset here, we're going to say, we put it over two lines. On click equal reload. And it'll call that reload routine that we just wrote a minute ago. All right. This will say reset instead of submit. All right, we're not done yet, but let's see if we can take a look at what we have right now. So save all. And let's see if I have any errors. So npm start. If I do have errors that it won't run, this screen will stay black and I'll get all the error messages. Like that. All right, the BMI is not defined. Min obese is not, I spelled min obese wrong. Image source is not defined, and image min obese is spelled wrong twice. Okay, we'll fill these out right now. Tell you what the problems are. So you can see my errors are shown right here. So let's fix those. All right. The first one is when I did the BMI up here. I did say let. Well, I'm going to go back and change it to what I had before. And that is I'm going to put BMI right there. And I'm going to put BMI right there. I'm not sure why, but I played around with it and finally got it to work doing that. I don't know why. And I spelled obese wrong in a couple places. So that's OBESE. And that's somewhere else I spelled it wrong as well. Probably down here. All right, let me save that. Go back to here. And it still says my image source is not defined. Okay. Oh, it is right there. Let image source. Again, I had to play around with a lot of this stuff to get it to work. All right, I'm going to move that up to the top here and see if that matters. Still doesn't like it. Says in line 58, it's not defined. All right, I'll have to fix that one. I don't know what the problem is. It says it also cannot find the file index.css. All right. All right, so it's just that image source one, so we'll have to fix that, and I will in just a moment. All right, so coming down here then, again, this is our JSX. We've got everything set up except, so it's got all the stuff set up until we get to, there's a couple more things we want to put in here. All right, and that is we want to put in the message. So in other words, were they underweight, overweight, or whatever. And that's gonna be outside of the form, and we want to show the picture. And I think that's why we're having the problems with the image source, but we'll see if this fixes it. That should be showing us the BMI, hopefully. All right, and then right underneath that, we'll just add it, put it into a paragraph tag, and I'm going to say message. So that should be the underweight, overweight, optimal weight, or obese. All right, and then finally, all right, and I think that's everything we need. Let's look. It's still giving us that. Now, why is it giving me that? Because it didn't before. Oh, okay, it's got here, image source is not defined. I know why that is. Because this, there it is. That should be IMG source, not IMAG. So that's IMG source. All right. That was the error all along. So save everything. All right. Right now it looks pretty bad. But you can see, okay, let's see if it works. So if somebody is 72 inches and they weigh 111 pounds, they're pretty skinny. Okay. BMI is 1503, they're underweight, and there's their picture. All right. So if they're 170 pounds, they should be fit. So there's optimal weight. And reset works as well. See that? All right. So if they're about 200 pounds, they should be overweight, and they are. And if they're 333 pounds, they should be obese. Maybe not the best picture for obese, but they all work. So now all that we have to do is go back in and pretty this up. Okay. So that's what's left to do. So let's start it right now. And as you guess, I mean, there's a fair amount of CSS that we're going to put in here, but I'm just going to keep going. And when I get done, that's going to be it for today. All right. So I'm going to come in here. I'm going to leave all the stuff that was in here. This is what you get out of the box. Turning off the margins, setting a font family, this smoothing, basically it's aesthetics. If you put code in here, this is the font family that you're using. So I'm just going to go right underneath that. And I'm going to put in my index.css stuff. All right. Well, remember that this thing was an app. All right. Up on the top we had said that the class was equal to app. In fact, if I go back to here, let me bring that back up again. It says function app. All right. And if we go into here, someplace in here, it'll say class name is equal to app. It's got it in there someplace. I don't know where. I don't want to go look for it. All right. But we'll come in here and do this. Just when you thought we were done with display flex. I don't think you're going to see a lot of changes because we still got a bit more to do, but let's see. All right. Doesn't really look any different yet. It will. And I used rems in here for everything rather than pixels. Input. So these are our text boxes. And again, I played around with this. You could change this any way you wanted to. All right, so there's that. Then I did our labels as well. Next, the button. And again, like I said, you could play with this. I was very, um, I set this up so it's just that the button was black and the text on the button was white. Just about 10 more lines or so. All right, that's everything. So let's see what I did to it. Now I want to put it back to 100%. Well, for some reason, those aren't centered now. I don't know why. I'll have to look at that. All right, but we'll get that to work. But let's take a look at everything that's in here. So let's go back and reset. That's working. So again, 72, and let's leave it at 0. We get our message. Please enter a valid height and weight. Okay. 111. Submit. Underweight. There it is. There's our picture. So this is all goofed up space-wise. The one that you will get is okay. All right. 177. There's the BMI. Optimal. There's the picture. 211. There's the BMI. There's overweight, and there's the picture. And then finally, all right, I'm just missing something on the CSS that I put back in. But again, you are going to get the completed project. So let me one more time just to show you. And let's see. Still says I got errors and warnings, but the one that I gave you works, okay? Let me see down at the bottom here. I'm going to go down to the bottom and see if I've got, it's giving me a warning, but it says I don't have any errors anymore. Okay. So let me stop this. All right. And just to show you, again, this is the one that you will be getting. It's inside of Day 3 Intro to React, the BMI one. Stop this. Oh, that is it. Okay. So NPM start. There it is. So you can see it looks a lot nicer and it still works with nothing in there. Here's my error message. All right. I could have checked and I guess played with the focus and that. I didn't do a lot with this period. So there it is. There's the underweight. There's the optimal weight. There's the obese. And there's the overweight. All right. So tomorrow, what we're going to do is, I think at least when we start out, we're going to actually build a functional calculator. All right. And we'll see how long that takes. I want to go back and rewrite that because I didn't like the way that the one I did previously looked. So I'll rewrite that tonight. And if there's time, we'll actually go in. We're going to write at least one program and probably two of them when we go out and we use fetch. So we go out to the internet to get information for us. I want to do that in between tomorrow and Monday, and that'll be it for the class then. All right. Grant, any questions on anything we did today?
I don't think at the moment. Thank you.
Okay. All right. And like I said, a little later this morning, I will have the repo out for this. Okay. So you'll get it soon. So I will talk to you tomorrow at 8:05. Have a good day.
Sounds good. You too.
Thanks.